And so the question, though, is really how can China start to raise the value of that dollar, and how are we going to get away with it? Because we buy because that dollar's so low, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in fact, when you think about the dollar, it's not that there's, you know, how are they keeping it at the level they're at? What it's about is they've been artificially holding their currency low for a long time by pegging it to the U.S. dollar. So if the government's willing to exchange for a long time, it was at 12 cents. You could buy a renminbi or a unit of their currency called yuan. You could buy that for 12 cents. What's happened is that they've held it artificially low, which has made it very efficient for them to export. So they've made their goods cheaper around the world. And there's a theory out there called purchasing power parity, where it says that basically currency should gravitate towards a level, an exchange rate, that would make a basket of goods equal in both locations. And I thought nothing better to show you than to illustrate this than my favorite sandwich, the Big Mac, and how that's selling for in each of the countries. What this graph is showing you here along the right-hand side, I just want you to pay attention to the white boxes along the right-hand side. What this is showing you is it's showing you the cost in US dollars of a Big Mac. And this is something The Economist, a magazine that we all tend to follow on my side of the business, that they publish every year. And what they're trying to do is say a Big Mac is sold in many, many countries, so why don't we track what the value is? So what you're seeing here is that if you look at the United States, a Big Mac right now costs $4.07. Now, if you were to exchange some of your US money into the renminbi or the yuan, the Chinese currency, and buy a Big Mac, you'd actually have to exchange about $2.27 US to get that Big Mac. Now, that said, how can that be? Well, essentially, one is that they've kept their currency pegged to the US dollar, so they've kept it cheap. And what you're hearing out in the news is that they're allowing their currency to float within a range. And every time they do, it tends to gravitate towards the top of the range. So we saw them at 12.5 cents prior to 05. Then we saw from summer of 08 to 2010, they were at 14.6 cents. Then they let it float up again, and it went right to where it is today at about 15.7 cents. So that's currency. One of the risks is that if you keep your currency too low, you don't get a lot of internal domestic demand. They're not buying a lot of things from other countries because their currency is cheap and everywhere else is expensive, so you don't get a lot of domestic consumption. So that would be one of the risks.